Captain Do-hyun Kim stood on the bridge of the human ship New Horizon. The stars looked the same as always, but today felt different. His communication officer turned to him with worry in her eyes. "Captain, we are getting strange signals from the outer rim. They sound like distress calls." Do-hyun walked over to listen. The sounds were unlike anything he had heard before. They were musical, like whale songs, but sadder. Much sadder. "Can we understand what they are saying?" he asked. The officer shook her head. "Not yet, sir. But our computer is working on it." Do-hyun had been a ship captain for 15 years. He had seen many things in space. Pirates, traitors, even some aliens from the Galactic Council. But these sounds made him feel something was very wrong. Dr. Sunwoo Lee came onto the bridge. He was the ship's expert on alien life. His face was pale. "Captain, I think I know what these signals are. They are from the Keth Mori." "Who are the Keth Mori?" Do-hyun asked. "They are water people from a planet called Veltara. I studied them in school. They are peaceful and very smart. But their sun is dying and their world is getting too hot." The communication officer suddenly got excited. "Captain!" The computer figured out some of their language. "They are asking for help. They say they are refugees." Do-hyun felt his heart sink. Refugees in space usually meant bad news. "How many ships are out there?" "Over 800, sir. Maybe more." Dr. Sunwoo looked shocked. "That could be millions of Keth Mori. Their entire species might be out there." Do-hyun made a decision. "Set course for their location. We need to see what is happening." The New Horizon traveled for 6 hours before they found the Keth Mori fleet. Do-hyun had never seen anything like it. Hundreds and hundreds of ships floated in space. They looked like they were made of coral and shells. Some ships were huge, like floating cities. Others were small family boats. "Captain," his officer said quietly, "I am getting signals from all over the galaxy. The Keth Mori have been asking everyone for help. What kind of responses are they getting?" The officer looked down. "Bad ones, sir. Very bad ones." Dr. Sunwoo was reading reports on his tablet. His face got angrier with each page. "Captain, this is terrible. The Velthari Empire told them to die quietly. The Corvan Empire said they were worthless. The Nexus Coalition called them genetic trash." Do-hyun felt angry too. "What about the Galactic Council? Surely they will help refugees." "No, sir. The Council voted yesterday. They said the Keth Mori are not worth saving. They called them non-viable for preservation." The bridge became very quiet. Everyone knew what that meant. The galaxy had decided to let an entire species die. Do-hyun opened a channel to Earth Command. Admiral Hyjin Park appeared on the screen. She was a tough woman who had fought in 3 wars. "Admiral, we have a situation," Do-hyun began. He explained everything about the Keth Mori and what the galaxy had decided. Admiral Park listened without speaking. When Do-hyun finished, she was quiet for a long time. "How many Keth Mori are there?" she finally asked. "Over 2 million, Admiral. Men, women, children. All of them will die if no one helps." "And every major power in the galaxy said no?" "Yes, Admiral, everyone." Admiral Park looked at something off-screen. Then she looked back at Do-hyun. "Captain, I want you to contact their leader. Tell them we want to talk." Dr. Sunwoo worked with the communication officer to send a message to the Keth Mori. They waited for an answer. When it came, the voice was old and tired. "I am Nimtala, elder of the Keth Mori. You are humans, yes? We have heard of your species. You are young in the galaxy." "We are young," Do-hyun replied. "But we want to help you." There was a long pause. "Many species have said they would help. Then they learned we offer nothing valuable in return. We have no weapons, no rare metals, no great technology that others want. We are just people who need homes." "We do not care about weapons or metals," Do-hyun said. "We care about people." Another pause. "The great powers of the galaxy have spoken. We are not worth saving. Why would humans think differently?" Do-hyun looked around his bridge. His crew was listening to every word. He thought about Earth, about human history. Humans had always been the ones to help others, even when it was hard. "Because that is what humans do," he said simply. Admiral Park spoke to Do-hyun privately. "Captain, I need you to learn everything about these Keth Mori. What do they need? How can we help them? I am going to talk to the president." While Dr. Sunwoo worked with the Keth Mori to understand their needs, Do-hyun got reports from across human space. The news was spreading fast. Humans everywhere were asking what their government would do. President Ji Ho Nam called an emergency meeting. Do-hyun watched the news feed from his ship. The president stood before the human assembly. "Fellow humans," the president began, "we face a choice today. An entire species is dying and the galaxy has turned its back on them. They have no powerful friends. They offer us nothing except their lives and their hope." Some assembly members looked worried. Helping refugees was expensive. It would use resources Earth needed for its own people. "But," the president continued, "we are humans. Our ancestors took in refugees when others would not. We helped people who had nothing to give back except their thanks. This is who we are." The vote was close, but it passed. Humanity would help the Kethmori. When Do-hyun told Elder Nimtala the news, the old alien was silent for a long time. "You would really do this? Even though your galaxy neighbors disapprove? Even though we cannot pay you back?" "Yes," Do-hyun said. "We will do this. Why?" Nimtala asked. "Why would humans risk so much for strangers?" Do-hyun thought about the question. He thought about his daughter back on Earth and what kind of galaxy he wanted her to grow up in. "Because someone should," he said finally. "Because if we do not help people when they need help, then we are not the kind of people we want to be." That night, Admiral Park announced the Sanctuary Protocol to the galaxy. Humanity would provide emergency shelter to any Kethmori who needed it. Human ships, stations, and colonies would open their doors. The galaxy's response was swift and angry. The Velthari Empire called humans foolish. The Corvan Empire said humans would regret their choice. The Nexus Coalition warned that helping inferior species was against natural law. But on the bridge of the New Horizon, Do-hyun smiled as he watched human ships arriving from all directions. Cargo ships, passenger ships, even private family boats. Humans coming to help people they had never met. Dr. Sunwoo came to him with good news. "Captain, I have been talking with their scientists. The Kethmori are not just refugees. They are brilliant. Their knowledge of biology and living systems is amazing. They could teach us so much." "That is good," Do-hyun said. "But even if they had nothing to teach us, we would still help them." Engineer Boram Choi was already working on plans to modify human ships for Kethmori passengers. It would not be easy. The Kethmori needed water environments and special air. But humans were good at solving problems. As the first Kethmori refugees transferred to human ships, Do-hyun felt proud of his species. The galaxy might be a cold, uncaring place, but humanity would be different. The galaxy had denied the Kethmori, but humanity would shelter them. It was just the beginning. President Ji-ho-nam stood before the cameras as the entire galaxy watched. Behind him, the flags of every human colony flew side by side. His words would change everything. "Today, humanity announces the Sanctuary Protocol," he said calmly. "We will provide emergency shelter to the Kethmori refugees. All 847 of their ships, all 2.3 million of their people." The reaction across the galaxy was immediate. News channels buzzed with angry voices. Galactic leaders called emergency meetings. Many said humanity had made a terrible mistake. On the research station New Geneva, Dr. So-young Kim barely looked up from her work. She was too busy trying to solve an impossible problem. How do you keep water people alive in space stations built for air breathers? "The Kethmori need saltwater environments," she told her team. "But not just any saltwater. Their bodies need specific minerals and temperature controls. Too hot and they cook. Too cold and they cannot move." Her assistant, Dr. Yan-sik Park, looked worried. "Doctor, we have never done anything like this before. Human technology is not made for water people." "Then we will make it work," Dr. So-young said firmly. "We have 3 weeks before the first Kethmori ships arrive here. That means 3 weeks to learn how to keep them alive." Across human space, similar scenes were playing out. Commander Taemin Jang was on the colony ship New Seoul, trying to figure out how to convert cargo bays into water habitats. "Sir," his engineering chief said, "we would need to flood half the ship. Where will our own people live?" "We will make room," Taemin replied. "Humans are good at living in small spaces. We have done it before." The work was backbreaking. Human engineers worked around the clock, welding new walls, installing water systems, and creating airlocks that could switch between air and water environments. The cost was enormous. Human colonies had to donate supplies, equipment, and money. Some humans complained. "Why should we sacrifice for aliens we have never met?" they asked, but most humans remembered their history. Earth had always been a planet of refugees, humans who fled wars, disasters, and persecution. The stories their grandparents told about helping strangers were still fresh in their minds. Dr. Yuna O was having her own struggles on the diplomatic ship Harmony. She was trying to learn the Kethmori language, but it was unlike anything humans had ever encountered. The Kethmori communicated with sounds, but also with lights in their skin. Different colors meant different emotions or ideas. A gentle blue meant friendship. Deep red meant danger, but there were hundreds of other colors that Dr. Yuna could not understand. Then, a young Kethmori scientist, was trying to help her learn. He was patient, but the language was so complex. "Your species uses only sounds," Veldon said, his skin flickering green with amusement. "We use sounds and lights and even water movements. How do you express the feeling of current joy mixed with spawning sadness?" Dr. Yuna had no idea what that feeling even was, let alone how to express it. But slowly, they were making progress. As she learned more Kethmori words, Dr. Yuna discovered something amazing. The refugees were not just scared people running from a dying world. They were brilliant scientists, artists, and thinkers. Vel then showed her examples of Kethmori technology. They grew computers instead of building them. Their ships were alive, healing themselves when damaged. Their medicine worked by partnering with tiny living creatures that could fix almost any injury. "This is incredible," Dr. Yuna told Commander Do-hyun when she reported her findings. "Captain, the Kethmori do not just need our help. They could help us too." But the galaxy was not interested in what the Kethmori could offer. The powerful species were angry that humans had defied their decision. Ambassador Kyung-Soo Han received the first official warning from the Velthari Empire. The message was simple and threatening. Humans will cease harboring inferior species immediately. The Kethmori have been judged unworthy of survival. Humans who continue to help them will face consequences. Similar messages came from the Corvan Empire and the Nexus Coalition. Trade routes were threatened. Human colonies were suddenly subject to security inspections by galactic patrol ships. Ambassador Kyung-soo brought the threats to President Ji-ho-nam. "Mr. President, they are trying to force us to abandon the Kethmori. If we continue, they might cut off trade with human space. Our economy could collapse." President Ji-ho was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. "Ambassador, do you know what my grandfather used to say?" "No, sir. He said that anyone who threatens you for helping others is not someone you want as a friend anyway." The president's message to the galaxy was clear. Humanity would not abandon the Kethmori, no matter what threats were made. Meanwhile, the first Kethmori families were arriving at human stations. Dr. So Young and her team had worked miracles. The water habitats were not perfect, but they worked. Young Kethmori children swam through the new environments, their skin glowing with wonder. Elder Nimtala toured the facilities with tears in his old eyes. "You have done more than we dared to hope," he told Dr. So Young. "Your people have given us life." But there were problems too. Some human colonies were not ready for Kethmori refugees. Cultural misunderstandings led to arguments. Resources were stretched thin. Some humans began to doubt whether helping the refugees was worth the cost. The situation got worse when the Velthari Empire began intercepting human ships near their territory. They were not attacking yet, but the message was clear. Support the Kethmori and face isolation from the galaxy. On Colony New Pacifica, Director Min-ho Kang was dealing with his own crisis. Local human settlers were complaining about the changes needed to accommodate Kethmori refugees. "We came here to build human communities," one settler argued. "Now half our resources are going to aliens." "These aliens are people," Min-ho replied. "People who will die without our help." "But what about our children? Our future?" Min-ho understood their concerns, but he also remembered the videos of Kethmori children playing in the new water habitats. They laughed and played just like human children. Their joy was the same, even if their bodies were different. The breakthrough came when agricultural specialist Yoon-ji Lim made an amazing discovery. She was working with a Kethmori bioengineer named Kethmar to solve food shortages in the refugee camps. "Human plants will not grow in our water environments," Kethmar explained, "and our food will not grow in your air environments." But as they worked together, something unexpected happened. Kethmar showed Yoonji how Kethmori plants could be modified to grow in air if they had access to mineral-rich water. In return, Yoonji showed Kethmar how human genetic engineering could make plants grow faster and stronger. Together they created something new. Plants that could grow in both air and water environments. plants that produced more food than either species had ever seen before. "This is impossible," Yunji said as she looked at their test crops. "These plants are producing 3 times more food than anything we have grown before." "Not impossible," Kethmar replied, his skin shimmering with pride. "This is what happens when 2 species work together instead of apart." Word of the agricultural breakthrough spread quickly. Suddenly, human colonies were interested in working with Kethmori refugees. They were not just taking resources anymore. They were contributing to human communities. Chief Engineer Dayun Park made another discovery while working on ship repairs. Kethmori biomaterials could strengthen human ship hulls. When combined with human engineering, the results were incredible. Ships that were stronger, lighter, and could repair themselves. "Admiral," Dayun reported to Heejin Park, "if we continue working with the Kethmori, human ships could become the best in the galaxy." But the galaxy was not interested in human success with Kethmori refugees. The threats were escalating. Intelligence Officer Sujin Kwan brought disturbing news to the human leadership. "We are receiving secret messages from other species," she reported, "species that the galaxy has also rejected. They are asking if humanity would help them too." "How many species?" President Jiho asked. "Dozens, sir. Maybe more. The galaxy has been systematically denying aid to any species they consider inferior." The president realized that humanity had stumbled into something much bigger than a refugee crisis. The galaxy operated by deciding which species deserved to live and which should die, and humanity had just declared they would not follow those rules. As the first month of the Sanctuary Protocol ended, the results were mixed. The Kethmori refugees were surviving, and some were even thriving. Human Kethmori cooperation was producing amazing breakthroughs, but the galaxy was angry. Trade was being restricted. Human ships were being harassed. Other species were watching to see if humanity would stand firm or give in to pressure. On the bridge of the New Horizon, Captain Do-hyun Kim received a message from Elder Nimtala. "Captain, some of my people want to leave. They are afraid that helping us will destroy humanity. They do not want to be the cause of human suffering." Do-hyun thought about his response carefully. Then he smiled. "Elder, tell your people this. Humans have faced threats before. We have been told we were too weak, too stubborn, too foolish, but we are still here, and now so are you." The Sanctuary Protocol was working, but the real test was just beginning. 6 months had passed since the first Kethmori refugees arrived in human space. Colony Director Min-ho Kang stood on the observation deck of New Pacifica, watching something that still amazed him every day. Below, in the colony's mixed environments, humans and Kethmori worked side by side. Human children played with Kethmori younglings in specially designed play areas that had both air and water zones. The site never got old. "Director," his assistant called, "the monthly production reports are ready." Min-ho read the numbers twice because he could not believe them. Food production was up 400%. Manufacturing efficiency had increased by 250%. Scientific discoveries were happening every week. "How is this possible?" he asked. Dr. Yoonji Lim, now the colony's head of agriculture, smiled as she joined him. "It turns out that when you combine human engineering with Kethmori biotechnology, amazing things happen." She led him to the agricultural sectors where their joint projects were flourishing. Plants that could grow in salt water were feeding both species. Kethmori-modified crops could survive in environments that would kill normal plants. "Last week we grew vegetables on an asteroid," Yoonji said proudly. "An asteroid?" "The Kethmori showed us how to use bacteria that eat rock and turn it into soil." Meanwhile, in the engineering section, Chief Engineer Dayun Park was having her own revelations. She was working with Kethmar and other Kethmori engineers on ship improvements. "Watch this," Daun said to her human team as she damaged a piece of hull material with a laser. Before their eyes, the material began healing itself, growing new cells to replace the damaged ones. "Kethmori biotechnology is not just about growing things," she explained. "It is about creating materials that are alive. Hull plating that heals damage, computer systems that adapt and learn, energy systems that grow more efficient over time." Her team was speechless. This technology was decades beyond anything humans had developed. But the most surprising discoveries were happening. In the medical sector, Dr. Jae-sung Moon was working with a Kethmori healer named Ithvara to understand their approach to medicine. "Humans fight disease," Ithvara explained, her skin glowing soft blue with concentration. "Kethmori partner with life. We do not kill harmful bacteria. We introduce helpful bacteria that make the harmful ones weak. Dr. Jae-sung watched in amazement as Ithvara demonstrated their healing techniques. Tiny organisms invisible to the naked eye could repair human tissue, fight infections, and even reverse aging in some cases. Ithvara, he said carefully, are you saying you could extend human lifespans? Easily, she replied. Your bodies are actually quite simple compared to Keth-Mori physiology. With the right symbiotic organisms, humans could live for hundreds of years and stay healthy the entire time. The news of these breakthroughs was spreading throughout human space. What had started as a humanitarian mission was becoming the greatest scientific advancement in human history, but not everyone in the galaxy was happy about human success. Intelligence. Officer Sujin Kwan brought troubling news to the human leadership. Her office was filled with secret communications from across the galaxy. President, she reported to Jiho Nam, we are receiving messages from species we have never heard of before. They are all asking the same thing. Will humanity help them too? She showed him the latest batch of communications. The silicon-based Mordaki had been denied aid because their bodies were too different from carbon-based life. The hive-minded Zephyrians were rejected because their collective consciousness scared other species. The energy-being descendants of the Luminar were considered too alien for galactic society. How many species are we talking about? President Jiho asked. At least 30 that we know of, sir. Maybe more. They are all species that the galaxy has decided are not worth saving. The president looked at the communications. Each one told a similar story. Natural disasters, solar problems, resource shortages. And each time the galactic powers had found reasons to deny aid. Sir, Sujin continued, there is something else. These species are not powerless. The Mordaki can perform calculations that make our best computers look like toys. The Zephyrians can coordinate massive projects perfectly because they share thoughts. The Luminar can manipulate energy in ways we cannot understand. You are saying the galaxy is throwing away species with incredible abilities? Yes, sir. It seems like they only help species that will not threaten their power. Meanwhile, the galactic powers were becoming more aggressive in their response to humanity's actions. General Wanshik Lee reported increasing military activity near human space. Admiral, he told Hyojin Park, Corvin Empire ships are conducting training exercises right on our borders. The Velthari have increased their patrols, and the Nexus Coalition has placed trade sanctions on any company that does business with human colonies housing refugees. Admiral Park studied the tactical reports. The galaxy was preparing for something. General, what is your assessment of their intentions? They want to force us to abandon the refugees, Admiral. If economic pressure does not work, they might try military pressure. The pressure was working in some places. Several human colonies were struggling economically because of the trade sanctions. Some colonists were beginning to question whether helping the refugees was worth the cost. But then something unexpected began happening. The first sign came from the frontier colonies. Remote human settlements that had always struggled to survive suddenly started thriving. The reason was simple. They had accepted the most refugees, including many of the impossible cases that other colonies could not handle. Colony Director Sang-Ho Kim on New Frontier reported incredible changes. President, our colony was dying 6 months ago. We had crop failures, equipment breakdowns, and no money for repairs. And now, President Jiho asked, now we have the most advanced agriculture in human space, self-repairing equipment, and 3 companies want to buy our technology patents. The refugees saved us. Similar reports came from across human space. Colonies that had embraced refugee cooperation were prospering. Those that had resisted were falling behind. The message was clear. The refugees were not a burden. They were an opportunity. Dr. Yuna Oh, now fluent in several refugee languages, made another important discovery. Many of the refugee species had been in contact with each other for centuries, sharing knowledge and supporting each other when the galaxy would not. President, she reported, there is an entire network of species that help each other survive. They call themselves the Forgotten. The galaxy decided they were not important, so they became invisible. How many species are in this network? Over 100, sir. Maybe more. They have been sharing technology, resources, and information for generations, and now they want to share with us. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not just rescued one refugee species. They had gained access to a hidden civilization of incredible diversity and capability, but the galaxy was not going to let this continue without a fight. Ambassador Kyung-soo, Han received an ultimatum from the Galactic Council. The message was simple and threatening. Humanity will immediately cease all aid to non-approved species. Refugee populations will be surrendered to proper galactic authorities for processing. Failure to comply will result in immediate sanctions and possible military action. The ambassador brought the message to President Ji-ho. Sir, they are not asking anymore. They are demanding. President Ji-ho read the ultimatum carefully. Then he looked out his window at the Earth below. In the distance, he could see a Kethmori habitat ship in orbit, its living hull shimmering in the sunlight. Ambassador, he said finally, prepare a response to the Galactic Council. The response was broadcast across the galaxy the next day. President Ji-ho stood before the cameras, but this time he was not alone. Behind him stood representatives of dozens of refugee species, Elder Nimtala of the Kethmori, Speaker Vexhai of the Mordaki, Prime Node Zarathen of the Zephyrians. To the Galactic Council and all who claim authority over sapient life, President Ji-ho began, humanity hereby withdraws recognition of your authority to determine which species deserve to live and which should die. The galaxy fell silent as he continued. We have seen your idea of order. Species are judged not by their character or potential, but by their usefulness to establish powers. Those who might challenge existing hierarchies are left to die. This is not justice. This is genocide through abandonment. He gestured to the alien representatives behind him. These species were told they were worthless. They were denied aid, resources, and even the right to exist. But in 6 months of cooperation with humanity, they have produced scientific advances that surpass anything the galactic powers have achieved in centuries. The president's voice grew stronger. Humanity will shelter any species denied aid by galactic powers. We will work with them, learn from them, and help them build new lives. Together we will create a galaxy where worth is measured by what you contribute, not by how well you submit to existing authority. The reaction was immediate and angry. Galactic leaders demanded explanations. Military fleets began moving toward human space. Trade sanctions became total embargoes. But in the refugee settlements across human space, a different reaction was taking place. Species that had hidden in the shadows for generations were coming forward. Dr. Hei-Rin Cho had always loved ancient history, but she never expected to discover that everything she knew about the galaxy was wrong. She was working in the archives beneath New Geneva Station with Thal Wen, an elderly Kethmori historian. They were trying to organize the massive amount of data that refugee species had brought with them. Each species had kept records, stories, and memories that the galaxy had tried to erase. Dr. Cho, Thal Wen said, his skin glowing with excitement, I think you need to see this. He showed her an ancient data crystal that looked like it was made of living coral. This contains records from before the current galactic powers existed, before the Council, before the Empire, before everything we know. Hei-Rin carefully connected the crystal to their translation computers. The information that appeared made her hands shake. This cannot be right, she whispered. The records showed a completely different galaxy. Thousands of years ago, hundreds of species lived together peacefully. They shared technology freely. They helped each other during disasters. Wars were rare because cooperation was more profitable than conflict. What happened to them? Hei-Rin asked. Thal Wen's skin turned dark blue with sadness. They were eliminated. Not through war, but through systematic abandonment. Species by species, they were denied aid during crises until only the current powers remained. Hei-Rin read deeper into the records. The pattern was always the same. A natural disaster would strike a planet. The species would ask for help. Galactic powers would find reasons to refuse aid. Entire civilizations would die while others watched. But this is genocide, Hei-Rin said in shock. Yes, Thal Wen replied. Bureaucratic genocide. Clean, efficient, and easy to deny. After all, they were not killing anyone. They were simply choosing not to save them. Analyst Young Jun Kim was having similar revelations in his office on Earth. He had been studying galactic politics for years, but now the puzzle pieces were finally falling into place. Su-Jin, he called to intelligence officer Su-Jin Kwan. Come look at this pattern analysis. Young Jun had mapped every refugee crisis in the galaxy for the past 1,000 years. The data showed a clear pattern. Every time a species developed technology that could challenge existing powers, they would face a crisis within 50 years. Solar problems, asteroid impacts, plague outbreaks, and every time, the galactic powers would find reasons not to help. Sujin studied the data. Are you saying these crises were not natural? Some were natural, Youngjun admitted. But the response was always the same. Let them die and claim it was inevitable. The most shocking revelation came from Elder Nimtala himself. He requested a private meeting with Captain Do-hyun Kim aboard the New Horizon. Captain, the elderly Kethemori said, there is something about my people that I have not told you, something the galaxy tried very hard to erase from history. Do-hyun listened as Nimtala explained the truth about the Kethemori. We were not just another species in the galaxy. We were the peacekeepers. For 3,000 years, the Kethemori maintained order through cooperation and mediation. We prevented wars. We shared technology. We made sure no species was abandoned during disasters. What happened? Do-hyun asked. The current powers did not like our influence. They wanted a galaxy where strength mattered more than cooperation, where big species could dominate small ones. The Kethemori system of mutual aid threatened their vision. Nimtala showed Do-hyun ancient records of Kethemori peacekeeping missions. They had prevented hundreds of wars. They had saved dozens of species from extinction. They had built a galactic civilization based on helping each other. So they decided to eliminate us, Nimtala continued. Not through war, which would have made us martyrs. Through abandonment. They caused the solar problems on our world, then refused to help when we asked for aid. Do-hyun felt sick. You are saying they murdered your entire civilization? They tried to. But you saved us. And now we can expose what they have done. The evidence was overwhelming. Hidden in the records of refugee species were detailed accounts of dozens of extinct civilizations. Each one had been eliminated the same way. Crisis, denial of aid, extinction. Admiral Hai-Jin Park called an emergency meeting of human leadership. The conference room was filled with scientists, military officers, and government officials. The situation is worse than we thought, she began. We are not just dealing with refugee species. We are dealing with the survivors of a 1,000-year genocide campaign. Strategic planner Insu Bayek had been analyzing galactic power structures. Admiral, the current galactic order is artificial. It has been maintained by systematically eliminating any species that could challenge it. How many species have they destroyed? President Jiho asked. Hundreds, Insu replied. Maybe thousands. And they are still doing it. The refugee species coming to us now are the next targets. Dr. Hayrin presented her historical research. The galaxy used to have thousands of flourishing civilizations. Now it has maybe 50 major species, and they all serve the interests of 3 or 4 galactic powers. The room was silent as everyone absorbed the implications. So what do we do? Someone asked. Admiral Park looked around the room. We expose the truth, and we make sure it never happens again. The revelation came at a crucial time. Galactic powers were mobilizing military forces to stop human refugee operations. The Corvan Empire had begun inspecting human ships at gunpoint. The Velthari Empire was threatening to cut off all diplomatic relations. The Nexus Coalition was preparing economic warfare, but humanity was no longer alone. The refugee species were sharing more than just stories. They were sharing technology, military tactics, and strategic knowledge that the galaxy had tried to erase. The Mordaki revealed computational technologies that could hack any galactic computer system. The Zephyrians offered perfect coordination between military units through their hive mind. The Luminar could manipulate energy shields and weapons in ways that defied physics. Most importantly, the refugee species knew things about galactic powers that those powers thought were secret. Military bases, trade routes, political weaknesses, economic dependencies. President, Intelligence Officer Su Jin reported, the refugee species have been watching the galactic powers for centuries. They know everything about their enemies. The refugees were not just victims anymore. They were becoming allies in a fight for galactic justice. When the Galactic Council demanded that humanity surrender all refugee populations for proper processing, President Jiho had a choice to make. What does proper processing mean? He asked Ambassador Kyung-soo. We know what it means, sir. They plan to eliminate the refugees permanently. They cannot risk these species spreading the truth about galactic history. President Jiho made his decision. In a broadcast that reached every corner of the galaxy, he stood before the cameras with a new message. To all species who have been denied, abandoned, or forgotten by galactic powers, he began, humanity offers you more than shelter. We offer you alliance. Behind him stood representatives of over 50 refugee species. Each one had been condemned to extinction by the galaxy. Each one had survived because humanity chose to help. For too long, this galaxy has been ruled by fear. Fear that helping others makes you weak. Fear that cooperation threatens power. Fear that different species cannot work together. The president's voice grew stronger. We reject this fear. We choose cooperation over domination. We choose diversity over uniformity. We choose life over bureaucratic death. He gestured to the alien representatives. These species were told they were inferior, but working together with humanity, they have achieved what the galactic powers could not. They have proven that strength comes from unity, not from standing alone. The president looked directly into the camera. The current galactic order is built on genocide, on the systematic elimination of any species that might challenge established power. This ends now. The reaction was swift and predictable. Galactic powers declared humanity an enemy of civilized order. Military fleets began moving toward human space. Economic sanctions became total blockades. But something else happened too. Across the galaxy, species that had been hiding in fear began to emerge. Ancient civilizations that had survived in remote systems. Young species that had been marked for elimination. Colonies of extinct species that had been hiding their true identity. The galaxy that the powers thought they controlled was revealing itself to be much larger and more diverse than they had imagined. On Earth, General Wanshik Li was preparing for war. Admiral, our intelligence suggests they will attack within the month. Combined fleets from all three major powers. Admiral Park nodded grimly. How many ships can we field? 300 human vessels, Admiral, against an estimated 3,000 enemy ships. The odds were terrible, but Admiral Park smiled anyway. General, how many ships can our allies field? General Wanshik checked his new reports. Ships had been arriving from refugee species across the galaxy. Not just transport ships, but warships that had been hidden for centuries. Admiral, refugee fleets are still arriving. Current count is over 800 vessels, many with technologies we have never seen before. And how many more species are joining us each day? Dozens, Admiral. The truth about galactic genocide is spreading faster than the powers can contain it. Admiral Park stood up. Fleet Admiral Dongmin Song stood on the bridge of the human flagship Unity, as the largest military fleet in galactic history prepared for battle. But this was not just a human fleet anymore. Beside the human ships flew vessels unlike anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. Kethmori bioships that healed themselves during combat. Mordecai crystal vessels that could compute battle tactics in real time. Zephyrian swarm ships that moved as one perfect organism. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, enemy fleets are approaching from 3 directions. Corvin Empire from the north, Velthari Empire from the east, Nexus Coalition from the south. Dongmin studied the tactical display. 3,000 enemy ships against his combined fleet of 1,200. The numbers still favored the enemy, but the refugee ships carried technologies that could change everything. Signal all allied commanders, he ordered. Operation Liberation begins now. The first surprise came when the Luminar energy beings demonstrated their abilities. Enemy weapons simply stopped working as the energy creatures manipulated power flows across entire battle zones. Shields failed. Engines died. Weapon systems went offline. The second surprise was the Mordaki computational advantage. Their crystal ships could predict enemy movements before the enemies knew what they were going to do. Corvin battle formations found themselves outmaneuvered by ships that seemed to know the future. The third surprise was Zephyrian coordination. While enemy fleets struggled to communicate across battle zones, the hive-minded Zephyrians moved their ships like one giant organism. They were everywhere at once, supporting each other perfectly. But the biggest surprise was how well all the different species worked together. Admiral, his communications officer, called out, the Kethmori bioships are sharing repair capabilities with our damaged vessels. Our hull breaches are healing themselves. Dongmin watched in amazement as human ships damaged in battle began repairing themselves using Kethmori biotechnology. Meanwhile, human tactical systems enhanced refugee ship weapons beyond their original capabilities. The battle was not just humans and refugees fighting galactic powers. It was cooperation defeating domination. Coordinator Mi Young John was managing the broader war effort from her command center on New Geneva. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy as the truth about genocide spread to every populated system. Coordinator, her aide reported, 17 more species have declared independence from Galactic Authority in the last hour. They are requesting alliance with the Sanctuary Coalition. Mi Young looked at the galactic map. Red zones showed areas still under galactic power control. Blue zones showed coalition territory. Yellow zones showed systems declaring independence. The map was turning blue and yellow faster than anyone had predicted. How are the galactic powers responding to the defections? She asked. Badly, Coordinator. They are trying to blockade independent systems, but they do not have enough ships. The refugee fleets are protecting the new allies. The Sanctuary Coalition was growing beyond anything Mi Young had imagined. What started as humanity helping Kethmori refugees had become a galactic revolution. On the battlefield, the tide was turning. The galactic powers had expected to face primitive refugee species and stubborn humans. Instead, they found themselves fighting technologies they had tried to eliminate for good reason. Captain Do-hyun Kim, now commanding a mixed human Kethmori task force, watched as enemy formations began to break apart. Captain, his Kethmori liaison Vel then reported, the enemy is retreating from the northern sector. Their ships cannot adapt to our bioweapon defenses. Do-hyun smiled. 6 months ago, humans barely knew how to house Kethmori refugees. Now they were fighting side by side as equals. Signal the fleet, he ordered. We pursue, but we do not destroy retreating ships. Our goal is liberation, not revenge. This had been humanity's approach throughout the war. Enemy ships that surrendered were offered the chance to join the coalition. Enemy crews that laid down weapons were treated as potential allies, not conquered enemies. It was working. Entire Corvan battle groups had switched sides when they learned the truth about galactic genocide. Felthari captains were abandoning their fleets to join the refugees they had once been ordered to eliminate. The war was becoming less about military victory and more about galactic awakening. Dr. Sunwoo. Lee was witnessing this awakening firsthand. He was aboard a diplomatic ship traveling to neutral systems, sharing evidence of the genocide campaigns with species that had remained loyal to galactic powers. Doctor, the ship's captain reported, we are receiving a response from the Altarian Republic. They want to see our evidence. Dr. Sunwoo had presented the historical records to dozens of species. The reaction was always the same. Shock, denial, then anger. Not anger at humanity, but anger at the powers they had served. Doctor, the Altarian representative said over the communication channel, if what you say is true, then we have been complicit in genocide for centuries. You did not know, Dr. Sunwoo replied gently. The evidence was hidden, but now you do know. The question is what you will do with that knowledge. The Altarian Republic joined the coalition 3 hours later. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. Species that had supported the galactic powers because they believed in order and stability were learning that the order was built on systematic murder. Strategic Commander Sung Ho, he was coordinating coalition expansion from his headquarters on Earth. The war had evolved beyond military conflict into something unprecedented in galactic history. Sir, his aide reported, we now have formal alliance agreements with 127 species. 73 more have declared neutrality and withdrawn support from galactic powers. Only 12 major species remain actively loyal to the old order. Sung-ho studied the numbers. In less than 6 months, the coalition had grown from a few refugee species to a galactic superpower. What about economic systems? He asked. Sir, coalition trade networks are outperforming galactic systems by 300%. Cooperative economics is proving more efficient than hierarchical control. The refugee species had not just brought military technology. They had brought economic models based on mutual aid rather than exploitation. Species shared resources freely, traded knowledge openly, and supported each other during difficulties. The result was prosperity that the galactic powers could not match. But the real revolution was happening at the personal level. On Colony New Terra, species that had been enemies for millennia were living together peacefully. Dr. Hairin Cho, now serving as the colony's cultural liaison, watched human children playing with Kethmori younglings while Mordaki crystals sang lullabies and Zephyrian hive minds told bedtime stories. Director, she told Colony Director Jinwoo Park, The children do not understand why anyone would think cooperation is impossible. To them, working together is natural. Jinwoo smiled as he watched the mixed species families that were forming across the colony. Maybe that is because children have not learned to fear differences yet. The older generation was learning too. Elder Nimtala had become a beloved figure across human space, sharing Kethmori wisdom with anyone who would listen. His bioluminescent stories were translated into dozens of languages and broadcast throughout Coalition space. Fear creates the need for control, he would say, his skin glowing gentle blue. But when fear is removed, cooperation becomes natural. This is what humans taught us when they chose to help instead of abandon. The final battle of the war came not through military force, but through political collapse. Ambassador Kyung-Soo Han, now representing the Sanctuary Coalition, addressed the remaining galactic powers with a simple message. Your economic systems are failing because they depend on exploitation. Your military forces are deserting because they cannot fight for genocide. Your political authority is collapsing because it was built on lies. The broadcast reached every corner of galactic space. We offer you the same choice we have offered every species. Join us in building a galaxy based on cooperation, or be left behind in systems that no longer work. The response was swift. The Nexus Coalition voted to dissolve itself and apply for coalition membership. The Velthari Empire split into dozens of independent systems, most of which immediately joined the coalition. The Corvan Empire retreated to their core worlds isolated and powerless. The war was over. But more importantly, the galaxy was transformed. 10 years later, Admiral Do-hyun Kim stood on the observation deck of New Terra spaceport, watching ships from hundreds of species arrive and depart in peaceful cooperation. His daughter, Captain Hyojin Kim, had grown up in this new galaxy. To her, the idea that species might abandon each other during crises seemed absurd. "Father," she asked, "do you ever regret the choice humanity made? It would have been easier to let the galactic powers handle the refugees." Do-hyun thought about the question. He remembered the fear and uncertainty of those early days. The threats, the sanctions, the possibility that humanity might be destroyed for their choices. Then he looked around at the thriving spaceport. Humans working alongside dozens of species, children playing games that combined the traditions of multiple worlds, scientists making discoveries that would have been impossible without cooperation. "No," he said finally, "we could have chosen the easier path.